Hello, hello. Yes, I am very much stimming. It looks so good. Okay, so I'm going to get started. If anybody shows up, we can always bring it back to the beginning. So today I want to talk about urge surfing. Now, this is a practice that's really, really helpful for anyone who struggles with any kinds of like major urges, or we use this a lot in recovery, but it doesn't have to be somebody who's struggling with substance use. It could be any kind of urge. Before I get into what urge surfing is and how to do it and doing a little script, I wanted to go over why urge surfing is helpful and why it is shown to have better results. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see how this works. Okay. So when we have an urge to do really anything, a lot of times people think of it as like from 0 to 100, like no urge and then an urge. But really what's happening, there's a lot of stuff going on under the hood. So in our brain, our stress response system is kind of the part of our brain that kind of spits out those urges and tries to get us to do things that maybe aren't really aligned with what we really want to be doing. So let's see here. So in our brain, this is what's happening. So first we have something in the environment that triggers some sort of response from us. And forgive this awful mess here. Okay. So first, this is some kind of trigger in the environment. We're picking up all kinds of signals all day long from the outside, our external environment, sounds, sights, smells, all kinds of things, words that people are saying. But when I say the environment, this could also be our internal environment as well. So even just thoughts and feelings, emotions, things like that can kind of trigger us to activate our stress response system. So what happens is there's some kind of input in our brain, And then that can activate our stress response system. And what our stress response system does is it tries to evaluate, is this a threat? That is an E. Is this a threat or not? Now, if the thing that triggered me was I might not have my rent paid, is that a threat? Heck yeah, it's a threat. If I could potentially be homeless in the near future, that's a very much a threat to me. So then what happens is our brain goes, okay, so there's a threat. Now that I've determined that, what can I do about it? So the brain says, like, what kinds of coping skills do I have? What kinds of resources do I have? That kind of stuff. So, say for example, again, going back to the rent thing, if I have some money in the bank and rent is due, that's a threat. And I'm maybe not sure. But if I'm like, well, I do have some extra cushion money, or I can always do something, or I can pick up a couple extra hours, then maybe we're not going to have that same kind of fight or flight response I might have if, say, my bank account was at zero. Or even if I only had half the rent. Say, for example, the trigger is somebody, I'm going through a breakup, right? And most people would be like, that's not a threat, obviously, but our brain perceives it as a threat. Think about how humans kind of evolved over the years, right? So, evolutionarily speaking, humans have always been community centered around being around other humans. And that was very important because what happens if you were just the lone hunter gatherer that got kicked out of the tribe and had to go venture on your own and do it by yourself? You probably didn't survive to pass on your genes. And so, emotional disconnection from other people, being ostracized from other people, being bullied by other people, these things are taken in our brain as threats. Because if that threatens the status quo, if that threatens my acceptance in this community, and then I might be ostracized, that is also a threat to the brain. The brain's like, no, these are my people. I'm going to be kicked out and then I'm going to die. Which is why when sometimes we're having like conflict with other people, like interpersonal conflict, sometimes it feels like it's life or death because our brain is saying this is life or death. So we have this trigger. Maybe it's a breakup threat. Yes. Okay. What are my coping skills? Well, maybe my coping skill has been eating or it's been going to substances, right? That's what I've been doing for a really, really long time. So then our brain's going to go, okay, I'm going to do that, right? If I have maybe some other coping skills that aren't as strong, so I could do some deep breathing, but I've only done that like 3 times. So that's not really in the pool of coping skills and resources that I have. So the brain assesses, are my coping skills and my resources enough to manage this threat? And if the coping skills we have aren't enough, say, like I said, we've only tried one breathing technique 2 times and we're not really good at that, then our brain goes to habit, right? How have I handled the situation in the past? Now, if I've been struggling with any kind of addiction for months, years at a time, our brain is going to go straight from this to that. All of this right here happens in like 50 milliseconds. The reason why that's important is because this is our threat response system. Imagine we're driving on the highway and somebody slams on their brakes, my body starts reacting before I've even had the chance to think about, well, should I push the brakes? Do I have enough brakes? Maybe I want to conserve my brakes? My brain doesn't go through that process. What happens is there's this trigger, there's some kind of environmental stimulus. It hits my brain, particularly my lizard brain that's like down by my brainstem, and then my body reacts before I've had a chance to think. And in that instance, that is survival, right? Well, that's how our brain deals with all kinds of threats, whether they're real or not. If the threat is that I think that somebody I care about doesn't like me, it doesn't matter whether the threat is real, my brain is acting like it's real. And so we go from this to this before we even have a chance to think about it. Now, this is where one of the most important things you can do in any kind of recovery, and I hate that this is a buzzword, and I hate that it is actually true, but mindfulness, right? So this is happening, and this is what leads to my clients saying, well, I was driving home and all of a sudden I looked up and I was right in front of the liquor store. And I don't know how I was paying for the stuff already before I even knew it. It was like just autopilot. And this is how this happens, because if we don't practice mindfulness, then this is going to happen and we're not going to be aware of it. If I don't know when I get in my car that in the back of my mind, my brain has determined that I'm going to go ahead and do my habit, then I'm not prepared, I'm not protected from this automatic situation here. So this is why mindfulness is so important. And what they found, the studies that have found that people who practice mindfulness and people who practice urge surfing in particular tend to have far, far better outcomes, even though sometimes they're more uncomfortable. And some might ask why. They're more uncomfortable and yet they're doing better. And that's because their perception of being uncomfortable is higher, but the other people are also uncomfortable. It's just this is going on in the background. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So that all of that is going on in the background. And I wanted to go over that because I think it provides a lot more context and allows you to understand like what and why, right? Why is it that I'm trying really hard and then it's like I don't have control? And it's because you're not really controlling your brain. Your brain is kind of controlling you. And so this is where urge surfing comes in. Sometimes there's not going to be a way to run away or to distract from an urge. Sometimes we have to learn to just sit in it. And the more we can notice as our urges come and then as they recede, the more often that we can pick it up in our day-to-day life, and the better we get at not like allowing it to kind of control us. One more thing that I want to go over here. Oh, goodness. Sorry. So before I move on to urge surfing, I want to go over one more thing. Let's see. All right. So in the background, right, we have all this input and everything going on. I just lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness. What was I saying? I'll find it eventually. Hold on. Urge surfing. Automatic. Mindfulness. Feedback. Okay. So the nature of urges. Why do we have urges? Why does our brain say, hey, I want to do this thing? Like, what is going on there? So really quick, I will also go over the why of that. I lost my screen. So a lot of it has to do with dopamine, right? And I'm going to give like a really, really watered down version of this. So basically, our brain learns over time when I have some kind of dopaminergic substance or activity or something that gives me a lot of dopamine, my brain learns that this is needed for survival, right? So dopamine equals survival. Dopamine tells me, oh my goodness, I can't multitask. That is dopamine. I swear I swear. Dopamine tells us what we needed, like what's needed for survival. Like when I eat, right? When I go to the bathroom, when I have sex, when I like drink water, I get dopamine from these things, and that tells my brain, keep doing it. This is needed for survival. And you can imagine all these substances, all these behaviors, eating like junk food gives a lot of dopamine. And so it kind of rearranges our view of what is needed for survival. So if my brain determines that I need, let's say, alcohol, for example, for survival, this is where cravings come in. So dopamine equals survival. When I am running low on, when it's been a while since I've eaten, my brain sends out cravings, right? When we go a long period of time without eating, we start craving things. And this is our brain's way of like reminding us, like, hey, over here, you forgot to eat today. So cravings are reminders. They're reminders for things that we need to survive, that our brain has determined we need to survive. Reminders. I need to get a better setup than this. So, cravings are reminders. When we reinforce cravings by using, so this is the feedback cycle. So we have a craving, right? Then we indulge in our craving. We kind of give in. So what we're doing is we're reinforcing this system. We're saying, thank you for reminding me that I needed to do this. I appreciate it. Don't forget to do that in the future, right? So we're rewarding our brain for sending us those cravings. Now imagine you're craving something like, I don't know, let's say heroin. So you're saying to your brain, when you have this craving and you indulge in it, thanks for reminding me. I almost forgot. Don't stop doing that. This is what you're kind of teaching your brain. What happens is when we have cravings and then we don't indulge, instead, maybe we surf it out, we just kind of like endure it. This is gonna look weird to people who don't watch the video. Cravings and then surfing. We surf out the cravings, right? We don't indulge. We are making it so that our brain is less likely to give us cravings, and the cravings become less intense over time. So less intense and less often. So this is another really good reason to do urge surfing. because you're teaching your brain that it can't, this is not needed for survival, right? So you have the craving comes, it peaks, and then it fades away. And so then your brain learns, okay, maybe I don't need this for survival because I didn't use it and I'm still alive, right? If I don't eat or drink, then I start to get sick and my brain starts to like panic. And at some point, I don't survive if I don't engage in those things. So this is kind of what's going on in the background. Now, I have a guided meditation here, an urge surfing exercise. So if you guys want to follow along, you can. So just go ahead and get into like comfortable position. Kind of relax. You can try to bring up maybe a smaller urge. I always recommend to not do this on urges that are really, really intense, especially if you don't have other kinds of coping skills, because this is a practice. All of these coping skills are a practice. And if you're at a 9 out of 10, this little urge surfing exercise that you've tried one time is probably not going to be very effective. You're probably not going to be skilled enough to be able to resist that kind of urge. But if you're at like a 2 or a 3, this should be perfectly fine for you to try. And I do recommend, because sometimes you can kind of notice the wave as it comes and goes. So this is a technique to manage unwanted behaviors. So we're going to ride out this urge like a surfer riding out a wave. And if you don't like the ocean, I've had clients who didn't like the ocean, you can think of any other kind of scenery, the forest or whatever else that's kind of calming for you. And that's perfectly fine too. Don't do anything that makes you extremely uncomfortable. Pay attention to your body. That's the first and most important part. So get in a comfortable position. You can close your eyes or let your gaze soften. Take a deep breath. Take another deep breath. Much like an ocean wave, an urge will gradually gain strength, peak, and then fade away. When an urge is growing or at its peak, it often feels as if it will never go away. You might feel discomfort or like you have to act on the urge. Remember, these are just feelings. Notice where you are on your wave of your urge. Is the urge gaining strength, peaking, or beginning to fade? Remind yourself that urges are temporary. No matter how intense your urge gets, it will eventually weaken and disappear, even if you don't act on it. The goal of urge surfing isn't to change your thoughts and feelings. Instead, you'll try to accept whatever it is that you're experiencing. Take a moment to notice your thoughts. Simply observe the words or images in your mind. Now shift your attention to your feelings. You might have uncomfortable feelings such as anger, temptation, guilt, sadness. Even uncomfortable feelings are okay. Now we'll practice some visualization. This will help you continue to ride out your urge. If you struggle to visualize, it's okay. Just notice that. Return your attention to the moment. Use all of your senses to imagine the following scene. Imagine you're standing on a beautiful sandy beach. You feel the warmth of the sun on your face and a gentle breeze on your skin. You begin to walk slowly down the shore. With each step, the sand crunches beneath your feet. Birds sing in the distance, and ocean waves rumble steadily along the shore. You take a step towards the ocean and stand at the edge of the surf. Cool water rushing over the top of your feet. The air is warm, smells salty. You look out toward the ocean and you notice the water contains every shade of blue and green. And when the waves peak, they shimmer in the sunlight before disappearing onto the shore. You continue standing on the shore, taking in the sensations of the beach, the ocean, and the waves. The waves in the ocean are just like your urge. They are powerful for a short time, but before long they peak and then fade away. You don't have to try to suppress your urge or change it. It'll simply fade away on its own. Now begin to focus on your breathing. For the next few minutes, you'll practice taking slow, deep breaths. You'll inhale for 4 seconds, hold the air in your lungs for 4 seconds, then slowly exhale for 6 seconds. When inhaling, focusing on completely filling your lungs with air. To start, follow along as I walk you through the breathing cycle. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, hold, exhale, Inhale, hold, exhale. Continue practicing on your own. During deep breathing, it's normal for your mind to wander. When you notice this happening, simply return your attention to your breathing, noticing how it feels to take slow, deep breaths. This exercise is nearly complete. Before continuing your day, take one more moment to observe your thoughts and feelings and notice if your urge has changed. And when you feel ready, open your eyes and stretch. You can come back to this practice whenever you feel like. If you enjoyed this practice, please let me know. If you have any questions, if anything came up for you, if you noticed a change in your urge, feel free to leave that down in the comments below. Thank you for coming. I hope this was helpful.